Alright, so hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I just want to sit down and talk about the viability of buying one of these new APUs in a desktop system. So I've had a bunch of people kind of come out and talk to me. Not a whole lot of people understand the difference between an APU and just a normal CPU, or just kind of what that entails with performance and stuff like that. And again, if you should just even consider buying a PC with something like a 5600G in it instead of something with maybe a lower end processor and an actual dedicated GPU. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you guys do end up enjoying the video, make sure to leave a like on it. And if you guys want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, so first let's just talk about what an APU is and what its differences are between a normal CPU. All right, so recently AMD has come out with their 5000G series CPUs that are available to purchase from consumers. Now, a lot of these were originally just in systems and pre-built systems, but now they are seeming to make a lot more of these things for just people in general, so that pretty much anybody can kind of go out and buy one and put it into their system. And it came at a pretty good time in the market because, again, as of right now, GPU prices are absolutely insane. You guys can look on eBay and stuff like that. But today, these are the kind of APUs that you can purchase that actually do have some graphical horsepower for them, and they're not crazy expensive. So what an APU is basically just your normal CPU. It's still got the 6 cores, 12 threads that your normal, let's say, 5600 would have, except because it is a 5600G, that naming moniker at the end, that G indicates that it has some graphical abilities. And that means it comes in the form of a added-on Vega processor. You can just kind of imagine the APU or like the Vega units, so that's the thing that processes all the graphic information that a system may need to process. You can pretty much just imagine that just kind of glued onto a normal CPU. And because of this, you're going to have some lower clock speeds on the actual CPU itself. So those 6 cores and 12 threads aren't going to perform necessarily as well as just a normal 5600X. And again, because there's a bunch of power and a bunch of different architecture things that pretty much cause this. Again, you can overclock it to maybe get some more performance out of it, but I know that might be out of the realm of some of these people who are looking to buy one of these APUs in a gaming PC like this. And right now, AMD offers 2 of these. So this is a 6-core 12-thread CPU, and this is a 8-core 16-thread. And the main difference between these two is, again, the 5700G has 8 cores, and this one has 6 cores. So in terms of CPU performance, the 5700G is going to perform better, and this APU also has one more graphic core than the 5600G. Now, how that correlates in performance is, again, you just get better graphics performance and better CPU performance because you are also increasing the CPU and the GPU when you're stepping up to the 5700G. So in terms of gaming performance, both of these things aren't going to be great. So a dedicated GPU most of the time is going to have extremely good performance because it's got all of its own assets itself. It has its own VRAM. It's pretty much specially designed just to do that sort of workload by itself. It's supposed to just do graphics. Whereas when you put in a CPU with a GPU on the same package, they're going to have to share some sort of resources. They're going to have to share some sort of cache. They're going to have to share the memory that you are actually using in the system. And a lot of times that's going to be slower than the memory that is going to be dedicated on the GPU chip. So in terms of performance, these things aren't going to be amazing, right? You're not going to be playing games at 1080p, 60 FPS, high settings. I mean, I guess it depends on what games you're playing. But if you're playing games like the new Call of Duty or anything that might be somewhat modern and using high texture quality and stuff like that, you're probably not going to get amazing performance out of it. Now, CSGO, on the other hand, where it doesn't really require a whole lot of graphics horsepower, it's probably going to play very, very well. And that's kind of what these chips are engineered towards. They're not really for gaming, I guess, is pretty much the way that you could put it. They're meant for people who just want to throw in a CPU, not have to worry about throwing in a dedicated graphics card and spending all of that extra money on it because, again, they're so expensive. And basically just being able to do some light graphical workloads that they might need to do. And this pretty much just helps with that kind of cost analysis. So instead of having to go out and buy, a 5600X, which is going to be around $200, and then maybe something like a GT 1030, which is going for around like $150, $200. You're pretty much consolidating all that price into a single package, and it's a lot easier to install, and a bunch of other things. So let's just talk about the PCs that this is in and kind of the pros and cons to having a system like this. So as you guys can see, the VRLA Tech Spark is their new PC that they put out here, and this is just an APU system. It just has a 5600G in it, and as you guys can see, there is no GPU populating that PCIe slot. And because of that, you're pretty much, like I said before, you're running the graphics through the CPU. It's not like the CPU itself is handling it, it's just that there's an added on chip or just an added on segment to the CPU that is allowing it to do some sort of graphic compute. And like I said before, it results in usually worse performance than what you would get with a dedicated GPU, though AMD is actually really good with their integrated GPUs, so their APUs are usually really good compared to something like Intel. So again, when it comes to like the 5600G, you're probably going to be playing games at 1080p, 30 FPS on low, medium settings, right? You're not going to be getting a great gaming experience out of it. And then with the 5700G, if you find a system with this particular CPU in it, or sorry, APU in it, you're going to get better performance than that. I mean, maybe you can play 30 FPS, 1080p at high settings instead. It's not going to be a huge difference, but there is going to be a slight difference between the two APUs here. Now, the main upside to buying one of these APUs is the fact that you have that open PCIe slot. So when it comes time, or when you get the money to have the ability to purchase the graphics card that you want, maybe say you're hunting for like a 3060 or a 3070, instead of having to take that GT 1030 that you had in your system just to be able to have some graphics running, you don't have to take that card out and just kind of throw it in a waste pile. You can pretty much just slot in your new card and the CPU will still work as it normally should. You'll still have a 6-core, 12-thread CPU like you had beforehand, except you're just going to get a huge upgrade when it comes to graphical horsepower because of the fact that you just threw in a 3060. So in terms of easy use and ease of upgradability, the APUs is a pretty good recommendation by most people, but when it comes to cost, I think that these systems are getting a bit pricey for my particular taste. So the Spark here from VRLA Tech only comes with a 5600G. As you guys saw the pricing on Amazon, it's around $260. Now for the total pricing of this system, they're pricing it at $750. Which I don't think is great. And it's not because like all the components are terrible, right? You're getting 16 gigs of RAM, which is great. You're getting a 500 gigabyte SSD, which is again also great. But again, this is $100 here, maybe like $120 here. Again, when you look at it, it seems like I could probably go to the store and find a system or just build this system by myself for a lot cheaper, and that's just kind of been the way of gaming PCs for the longest time, except when we're talking about APUs, this is super simple. All you do is just throw in the CPU and you automatically have graphics. So for a lot of people, it's not going to be that hard of a thing for them to go out and build their own gaming PC, especially with an APU. Personally, I think that if you just need a gaming PC and you don't want to build it, and you only have $750 to spend, then it's probably a better idea to go with one of these than something that has a GT 1030 in it, though the GT 1030 might give you a little bit better performance. And the main reason is that a lot of times in order to kind of compensate for that price range, they are going to be throwing in lower end CPUs. So this is only a Ryzen 3 3100, so this CPU only has 4 cores and 8 threads. Compared to the CPU on the Ryzen 5 5600G, or sorry, the Spark, it's going to have 6 cores and 12 threads, and it's going to be a lot better. Those cores themselves are a lot better just because this is a 5000 series generation CPU compared to the 3000 series. So it's a good bit of a step up in performance. And again, if you do end up upgrading this, let's say you do want to throw in that 3060 or that 3070, you're going to have to take out the GT 1030, throw it in, or try to resell it, or whatever you want to do with it, and then throw in the 3070. So you're kind of losing a little bit of the original value that you put in to buy the PC, compared to when you're buying one of these APU systems. You're just throwing in the thing, you're not losing. Like you're just adding to the value of the PC, whereas you're not removing a component and having to sell it, or just try to figure out what you're going to do with it, which again is going to be a lot better for people who are just kind of new to the gaming PC space. So personally, I don't think that buying an APU system is necessarily bad. I mean, a ton of companies are doing this. Light Tech, pretty much every company that sells gaming PCs is doing something like this. I know CyberPower, iBuyPower, Light Tech, VRLA Tech, pretty much any any gaming PC company is using these 5th gen AMD APUs to kind of just be like, all right, here's a system that can kind of play games, and then you can upgrade it later down the line. But again, they're charging a crazy amount of money, I personally think, for these systems. It's just a lot. So my suggestion would be, if you're looking for a gaming PC and you're not really looking to play any of the new stuff, maybe you're just looking to play like League of Legends, CSGO, Valorant, Fortnite, stuff like that, that can run on pretty low spec hardware, then you can go for an APU build. But if you can find a system that maybe, let's see if we can find one real quick. So if you can find a system that is a good bit around the same price, and you can find it with overall better specs, or maybe something with like just a higher end GPU than a GT 1030, so maybe like a 1650. So here, let's go price low to high. Let's see if we can find something really quick. So this HP Pavilion, right? $700. You're getting again, you're only getting a Ryzen 3, but the GPU horsepower is going to be a lot better than what this thing's going to offer, and your GPU is going to be the biggest dictator of the performance in games. So again, arguably this would be the PC I would go with, because then if you just buy another RAM stick to upgrade it to 16 gigabytes, it's not that big of a deal, and it's going to be a great gaming PC for most people. Again, $700 is a bit steep for an RX 5500, but again, it's going to perform well for anyone else. This is when you're kind of getting into the 1080p high settings. You're getting into being able to play all of the modern AAA games that are out there. And that's just not usually possible with these APU systems, or things with like a GT 1030 in them. So my recommendation pretty much just comes down to, if you can find a system with a Ryzen 5 5600G in it with a $600 price point, or just at least around the $600 price point or below, that should be a fine purchase. And if you can find with a Ryzen 7 5700G, I probably wouldn't spend more than $700 on it, just depending on kind of the other all-around specs. The 5700G is a good 8-core CPU, so if you're not someone who needs a whole lot of graphics horsepower, you just need the CPU cores to do some video rendering and stuff like that, then this might be the APU to go for. But when it comes to things like the Spark and like the Light Singularity, this thing's $1,000 for something that doesn't even have a dedicated GPU in it. It's not going to perform well. When you got things like this HP Pavilion that it arguably is just going to perform much, much better than any of these two PCs when it comes down to it. So again, when it comes to tiering, things like the AMD RX 5500 are going to perform much better than what an integrated GPU is going to perform like within a CPU. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I know I kind of talk fast. If you guys have any questions, or you just want me to clarify something, please go down in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to respond to you guys. If you guys did end up enjoying the video, make sure to leave a like on it, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.